Welcome back to the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett. Thank you for joining me today. This is definitely going to be a cool one. I'm almost at a loss for words, but I'm going to try my best for the first couple of minutes of this pod just to be as appreciative and thankful as possible. This, as you'll be seeing this a little bit later in this week, unfortunately, just had a lot going on, not able to get this out when I wanted. You'll see this either late Friday when you're listening to it if it comes out, or early Saturday. But I appreciate all of the support, as you'll see behind me on YouTube, as well as you will see or hear right now. Thank you. This is the 100th episode of this show, almost 2 years. December 26th will be 2 years doing this. And man, what it has been life-changing. Obviously, I've met a lot of great people and great friends in this community. The list would take way too long to name, but everybody that listens to this, who I've met or made friends to this community, you know who you are. Thank you. If you do not, I hope you do. I really do. Thank you. I also want to put out a really, really big, awesome thank you and shout out to just everybody that supports the show. Even last week, where some technical difficulties, or hypothetically, it might have been because of the length of the pod with Jim Arrange. If you haven't checked that out last week, we previewed college basketball. We got things kicked off for the year. Had a really good time, a lot of fun. The questions were kind of funny. I hate to humble brag here, but the questions were hilarious. I think there was some good ones in there. But I couldn't get that on YouTube, unfortunately. I'm having some issues with that, so I hopefully can get it on YouTube eventually, but the downloads tripled. So thank you. I appreciate all the support on all the yesterday and the NBA stuff, the writing, the article. This is technically the first time. If you're just a listener, I encourage you to go to the twopointerspodcast.com and check out some new written work, as well as a big board's coming out very soon for me. But just know, regardless, all the support, there's an article on there. Top breakout players in every Division I men's basketball school in North Carolina. That piece took me 2.5 months to make, so please take 2.5 minutes to go read it. It would be greatly appreciated. So I don't want to be super long-winded. The question of the day is going to tie into what the title of the episode will be. My favorite things I've watched so far in the NBA season. I've got 5 things that I'm very passionate about that I've just enjoyed the most. Wanted to keep it positive. I'm sure I could come up with 5 things I didn't, but I don't want this to be an hour pod. I want this to be 30 minutes if I can help it, right? You guys will be able to get it on YouTube for the YouTube followers and listeners. Thank you. You'll be able to get it, so I won't have any issues with getting it out there. So without further ado, again, I cannot stress enough, thank you very much for the support of the last couple of years. It does not go underappreciated. I promise you. Looking at doing some kind of cool giveaway here in the next couple of weeks. I'll work out what that is. If anybody out there wants to, hang out at the Magic game on November 30th, I'll be there, as well as some other great YouTube stuff coming up. We have coming out for you. So all that rambling aside, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Let's spend the next 25 minutes or so going over our favorite things. The question of the day is, tell me in the comments below or on TikTok. Send me a message on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you support the show at, other than here. I appreciate it. Send me your favorite thing you've watched this NBA season, or favorite things. Let me know what those are. I've got 5 of them today. Very, like I said, very passionate about some of these. Just want to get them out there as see what you guys think about it. And I'm very, very happy to say that these have happened. So without further ado, I'll start with the first one. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's ascension to stardom, quite frankly, has been one of the coolest things to see this season. If you've been a fan of his like I have been for multiple years now, humble brag, but you know this kid's special, and you've known that, and you've seen that. He led the league last year in drives per game as a guard, right? That's a good thing. Guards do that. Except this year, he also leads the league in drives per game with 25, and he's 3rd in the points in paint, the only guy in the top 15 that's a guard. So this guy's getting to the basket however he wants. It's been unbelievable to watch. Specifically, the game that comes to mind is the game against Boston, where they went into Boston and almost just left the Garden with a W. Like, that team's good, and that team's getting better. They don't have Chet Holmgren, but if this team's fighting for like an 8 seed, don't call me crazy for that. This is actually a possibility that's happening right in front of our eyes. If this team's an 8 seed, with 50 games in, and Chet can be back by February, why the heck not? Go for the play-in. Go for the playoffs. That's besides the point. That's way down the road we'll talk about. But Just a few things on Shea. Obviously, had a game winner on Thursday night. If you're checking out the yesterday NBA series, he's got his fair credit, but this is now the first time I've got a chance to talk about it in general, where I'm giving him his flowers for a good reason. He's an all-star, and that shouldn't be a debate. 32.3 points per game, 5.9 assists, 4.5 rebounds, and 14 games played this season. So he's only missed one game, I believe, if the math's adding up there. I'm recording this, if I didn't mention, on Monday, what day is it? Friday. Oh my gosh, Friday, November 18th. So you're hearing this hopefully right after that. Last guy to average 30 points per game for the Thunder was Durant's You the Real MVP season, the one where he told his mom that in the press conference. That was 2013-14, if anybody's wondering. It's been a long time. Obviously, 30 points per game is not easy to do. So, obviously, if he holds it up, this is going to be an unbelievable thing to see. Under 3, so 2.9 to be specific, 3-point attempts per game. That's just goofy. That's not the NBA we're in right now. Yes. In totality, just to summarize that, like the team's playing really, really well, and he's not having to like force assists. He's not having to be the dominant ball handler. Yes, the usage percentage there is probably really high. It actually didn't pull that. Luka's above, and everyone else is below him. But Shea's ascension in general, like his path, and I have to give credit to Bill Simmons for this original take, but it's a really good point. It's worth mentioning. Is Shea's ascension to stardom or ascension to the path that he's on now? Normally rookies of relatively high caliber, we're going to call lottery high caliber in this case, go to a team that stinks. They play, they get their flower, they get to learn from guys, whatever. Shea gets drafted into a situation where he immediately goes to a Clippers team that makes the playoffs, right? That was that team that was the 8 seed and went on to play, I believe it might have been Memphis in the first round. I don't remember exactly who, but he went and they played a playoff series in his first year, right? And he played, and he was a pivotal piece for them, almost winning that first round series. And then gets traded in one of the weirdest and biggest trade packages and moves in general in the last 15 years in that Paul George trade, which was an unbelievable amount of picks. And if I've learned anything from Sam Presti, Shea was the piece in that. It wasn't the picks. They were able to get Shea out of that trade. He goes into his second year where he gets to learn from Chris Paul. Quite frankly, I don't think there's anybody in the NBA right now better, except for maybe Steph Curry, that you can learn from as a point guard. Well, I guess Chris technically wholeheartedly as a point guard. Chris is probably a better scenario there. And then, of course, Chris Paul moves on from that OKC one random year where he gets him in the playoffs. Great guy he is, Chris Paul. And then he obviously has the last 2 years of what we're going to call the Tank Fest. It is what it is. Like, Shea's learned and had a very atypical or typical, untypical, whatever word I'm looking for there, career path. And I think that's really benefiting him. And we're seeing that as a team that's starting to really look good. Like, the smart passes to Jalen Williams, right? The Jalen Williams that can shoot from Santa Clara, to be clear. Poku's, as a fantasy owner of Poku, very thankful for him. Poku has taken a step up, right? Hitting corner threes and being that guy that is pivotal for him in those pick and pop situations. I mean, again, this team doesn't have Chet Holmgren. Shout out to Stephen Gillespie, my boy from No Ceilings on Twitter. He said a lot of podcasts and a lot of people who are talking about the Thunder have forgotten that Chet exists. Hard to, right? Hard to, or easy to do that because he's not there and they're winning games and Shea's kicking what, and that's fine. But this team could get him back very soon, and they're winning, and they have these pivotal players that are in this offense that it's just working what they're doing. The usage percentage and the way it's played, and it just reminds me a lot of the Luka years, the last couple of years. And I'm really, really happy with what I've seen, and I'm going to move on because I could go down a rabbit hole continuously. And I'm definitely going to have Grayson back on. Shout out to Grayson for being a Thunder fan in general, and also some of his stuff he does with his podcast. But you're gonna have to have him back on to talk about this because only experience I have with him in this is through text. So I definitely got to hear his full opinion on what's going on in OKC. They've been the most fun team to watch, and it's not. I mean, it's close. There's a lot of good teams we'll talk about, but Shea's been unbelievable. That's my whole point today. Whenever we have a chance, please vote Shea into the All-Star game. Next, we're going to talk about Trae Young and DeJounte Murray's. I guess we're going to call it working. But look, that's no surprise to anybody that listens here because I was saying as soon as it happened, once I got a chance to swallow the fact they gave it 3 picks, those 3 picks were worth it. DeJounte Murray and Trae Young together is working out really, really well. some of the stats may not say that, but if you watch basketball and you watch this Hawks team, some of the impressive wins they get, the way they play the lineups together and separately, I'll get to that in a second. But this team's really, really good, and they're back to that level that they were before with obviously a healthy Clint Capella and a healthy Aneka Kongwu playing those guys together. It's like a cheat code. You're basically getting two Clint Capellas from those Rocketeers. But that's besides the point. In talking about the Hawks, you have to understand that Trey and Murray are only playing 25 minutes per game together, most of that being in the second, end of the first, second quarter, or sorry, excuse me, beginning of the first quarter when the game starts, middle of the second, and then in clutch time, which is important. But luckily, the last like 5-10 games, they've been up enough where the clutch stats for them stink because they aren't playing together in the clutch. 3.3 plus minus, small sample size, you have to understand that with plus minus. But there's a bunch of lineups, and I love the NBA.com for their lineup stats. You get to see how 2-man, 4-man, 5-man, whatever combination you want of lineups for teams. You can literally go in and see what a team's best lineup is. It's one of the more fun things to do the further into the season we get to see some efficiencies, and deficiencies, I guess. But Trey and Murray are the 6th best 2-man lineup on their own team. Right? They're the 2 best players and the 2 most focal points of their offense and somewhat of their defense on Murray's side of things. And DeJounte Murray and John Collins and Trey Young and DeAndre Hunter, John Collins and DeAndre Hunter, Murray and Hunter are all more efficient lineups points per game wise and total points per game wise better than Trey and Murray. And they're 10th in defensive rating. Obviously, a lot of that goes into the fact that Murray's averaging 2 steals a game. And I mentioned the Clint Capella and Nneka Kongwu thing. I've really enjoyed watching this Hawks team. I'll get to another point of theirs that ties into my last one. I'll get to that at the end. There's another point that ties the last piece together. So it's actually really, really cool. It has nothing to do, well, it has something to do with them, but it applies to the last thing we'll talk about on this list. But yeah, Trey and Murray working separately and working together has been really, really good. Really, really fun to watch. Hawks have been an awesome team to follow along on League Pass. Speaking of really fun young backcourts, you have Ja Morant and Desmond Bane, who, like I said yesterday in the NBA series, when they combined it was something like 70-plus points, and they had an unbelievable game, both of them. I said to argue with your mom that they're the best backcourt in the NBA. That's no disrespect to Trey Young and DeJounte Murray. There's a lot of good candidates this year for that. You could even give a shout to a couple of other ones that I'll talk about in a minute. But those two, I have less stats to back this up. This is literally just, like I said, eye test on this one. I also feel very strongly about it because when the two of them are together, I know as you're hearing this, obviously you'll know that Desmond Bane has a 2 to 3 week right big toe fracture, something like that. 2 to 3 weeks out without Bane, but they're continuing to win games. They look fine. He'll be a good addition back to the lineup once he's back. They're averaging 51 points per game as a backcourt. They're the highest 2-man plus minus. I mentioned the lineup efficiency thing with Trey and Murray, how you could look that stuff up. They're the highest 2-man plus minus on the Grizzlies with 7.8. So even with a small sample size, that's a really, really efficient plus minus when they're on the floor together. As a combination, though, Bane's been really efficient individually, talking about combinations, but now individually, Bane's been a really, really good player. He's elevated himself into that 20-plus points per game number, continuing to shoot really, really well from 3. And just in general, there's this next level where I hate to be the guy, the old man that talks about the takes that he's had that he's right on, but I want to be clear. He was the most improved player last year. I don't care what anyone says. Ja Morant was a guy that's expected to make that leap the way he did. Unfortunately, that's just how it happened, and Desmond Bane is basically outplaying his own expectation from last year as a most improved player candidate. So he's playing like a most improved player again, and I'm going to again give him the award probably at the end of the year if he keeps this up and stays healthy. It's just been really, really awesome to see that cohesiveness as they've continued to build that over the years together. This team's only going to get better. They're so young. They're winning games in a really tough Western Conference, at least top part of the West, whatever, right? Just in general, Ja Morant, obviously, I don't have to talk anything about really because you all know who he is and what he's capable of and what we've seen so far. But just as a whole, these two together, the way they work individually and the way they work as two different types of players, right? Ja's the more slasher, efficient is safe to say because of the type of shots and the quality and where they are inside the 3-point arc. Still not a bad shooter in his own right. And then Desmond Bane's a top 5 shooter in the NBA right now across all accounts. So seeing those two guys work together is really, really fun. I cannot wait to get to a Grizzlies game. Would love for it to be this year. Probably won't be, but those guys, can't wait to see those guys play for a long time. The fourth thing I have enjoyed watching, or favorite thing I've watched this year, is going to just be two words. Three technically. The Sacramento Kings. I I can't say picking them to finish in that play-in spot is something that, like, it's what I predicted, but we'll get into it. So the Sacramento Kings as a whole, they're here. Like, this is a team that is figuring things out. Obviously, it's taken a very long time, and to Sacramento Kings, I genuinely apologize. That's why Josh and I previously, obviously Josh no longer with me doing this. Thank you to Carl for the nice comments to Josh, but we brought up saving Sacramento, or I guess I have to give him credit. He brought it up as a joke. And then as we started making decisions and talking about things that we would do, yada, 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 they start doing a couple other things and everything started to line up. And then they start winning games this year. And it's just really, really cool to see. Couple of really great things for the Kings. They're 8-2 in their last 10. Funny enough, they should be 10-0. Their only two losses were the two horrible foul calls that ended up on the 2-minute report, or I guess the NBA, whatever they go equivalently call it compared to the NFL. Only two losses were Hero's uncalled travel. I've seen that clip now 1,000 times, as you should. It was a horrible call. Hero completely traveled on that play. And then Klay Thompson's foul on the three-pointer, which I think was even more egregious. So they definitely should be 10-0. They continue to just win games, and they're just beating the crap out of teams. They're second in points per game, and they're 10th in opponent points allowed. So they're in the top 10 in not giving up points, and then they're second in points scored. It's a beautiful combination for a Kings team. Their bench has been specifically playing really, really well. Shout out to Terrence Davis and Malik Monk for just having, basically they pick a night and they're like, all right, this is your night to go off, this is your night to go off, and they just have a great time. They've been a fun team to watch. They've been my favorite League Pass team to watch. They've obviously played teams like the Warriors in there, had the loss there, but they've continued to show up against good teams like that. Fox is playing like an all-star straight up, and this might be the year because of the way the West is looking and how you have some teams that may not be, and I'm not going to go into the all-star rosters right now. We're going to get that pretty soon. I know it's crazy to think, but it's already late November, early December. We're already starting to see where people are starting to lean, and the voting will open up, obviously, and I believe it's first week of January. So we'll have that very, very soon. Fox is playing like an all-star. He's averaging 25-plus points per game. He's having a really, really good year. However, he's having to score a lot, but he's not doing the other things on the offense because he's not needing to, because Sabonis is actually leading the team in assists and rebounds. So they're getting really, really efficient shots because they just move the ball. They pass the ball, right? There's things that Sabonis has limitations of. I understand that. Shout out to Riv from Pick Aside having that Sabonis Would You Rather episode. Or Laurie Markkinen, and never mind anyway. I won't go down that rabbit hole. Sabonis is better than Laurie. I don't care what anyone says. But Sabonis has been a really, really good player for them. Like I said, he's had his deficiencies on some sides of the defense. I'm sure that they would be a perfect Miles Turner candidate. But then again, we've seen those two guys play together. Just as an example, right? We're getting close to trade season, getting itchy. But just in general, the Kings as a League Pass team have been really, really fun. They've elevated into that, where people are starting to make the meme of they should be taking all the Lakers primetime games, which I have League Pass. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I'd rather the general NBA population that watches TNT and ESPN games only to be able to see this team play. They're really, really good. This is also my last PSA for a while. Like, buy League Pass. It's going to keep going down in price. Stop delaying what you're doing about League Pass. So with the Kings, just know that if you're not watching, they can score the heck out of the ball. You're going to get an exciting game no matter what. And just, you can start to feel a presence watching those games, especially with the League Pass, where they have the in-arena cameras and you're basically there, no commercials, and you're getting to see all that stuff. Like, the atmosphere there, like, it's something just buzzing. All the memes aside, with the purple, I can't change this to purple on YouTube. You guys will see the light, but having the purple beam every time they win, and I probably should just put this on every time they win, make it purple, my little light in the studio here. But yeah, the Kings. I'm going to stop ranting. I'm going to give you that. The Kings have been unbelievable, and you definitely should be watching. All right, my fifth and final thing I like, favorite thing, I don't know, the wording of this title is going to be hilarious. The Bucks are winning without Chris Middleton, and it's impressive. They're 11-3. They're second in the East, and they lead the league in defensive rating with 105.4. Boston teetered in that same tier for a little while there. Boston's still the better defensive team as of right now, consistently, of course. But they're 17th in points per game, and that's the glaring point I want to bring up because Middleton, I've enjoyed watching it, but sometimes their offense is hard to watch. It's just Giannis takes the ball, drives in, figures it out. Sometimes that's going to happen, and that's what they did to beat the Suns in the finals sometimes. But they definitely will be a lot better off and get back into a flow when they get Middleton back potentially here at the beginning, mid-December. There's no guarantee for that, and I don't think they play on Christmas, so I don't know if they can do the cop-out. He'll be back for Christmas Day game. I have no idea. I don't think they do. But regardless, getting him back in that 17 point per game, they'll end up being a top 10 team in scoring, and you'll see a more efficient 3 point percentage as well. Overall, having Middleton in your lineup opens up better spacing for Giannis, forces less on Drew Holiday, who's been in and out of the lineup for a couple of games. And then they're actively shopping Grayson Allen, so it's not a team that's going to need, or it's a team that's going to, need Chris Middleton and some of the stuff he brings offensively to that team very, very soon. The last point I wanted to make on the Bucks is just knowing I wanted to tie the Hawks and the Bucks together, and this is where I wanted to go with it. They're only they are 11-3. Two of their three losses were to the Atlanta Hawks in pretty much blowout fashion. The Hawks took care of them very well. Something to monitor because they don't play them again, I believe, and it's good to know because that's something. If they play each other in a playoff series, we'll have a track record of these teams were good. Both Giannis was playing in both those games. The only other loss for the Bucks was without Giannis against the Spurs. So we're seeing a Bucks team that is clearly like this team's built to win a championship. That we all understand that, and there's no telling what they're going to get for Grayson Allen, a guy who's I think very underrated. He's officially become underrated, and I mean, at this point, supposedly, according to some of the local Bucks guys reporting wise, there may be a Jay Crowder trade on the horizon, like as in the next 24 hours. We'll see. I'm hesitant to say that that's the case, but the Bucks again are winning without Chris Middleton, and it's really really fun to see because the East right now it's good. Like it's not like it is a bloodbath, I guess you could say, but the East is top to bottom a very very good conference. There are some teams that I think are sliding, and then some teams that are a little bit underperforming. The Bucks would not be one of those teams without their second best player, which is just wild to think. So. All in all, SGA's ascension to stardom, Trey and Murray together, separate, working. Best backcourt in the league is Ja and Desmond Bane. The Kings, I'll just leave it at that. And the Bucks winning without Chris Middleton have been my favorite things to watch in the NBA this season. I really, really enjoyed all those things. There's a lot more, but just continue to follow the Yesterday in the NBA series. If you're following at a scratch the surface level fandom, I appreciate all the support on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. All of that stuff will be on the screen right here. Please subscribe, like, comment, do all of those things that you guys have been doing. Again, I want to just reiterate at the end of this show here, thank you for all of the support over the last 2 years. 100 episodes. I did not think that this was going to be something that lasted this long, and I mean, well, I did, to be fair. But I appreciate all the support. It's been an unbelievable outpouring. The basketball season is just getting started. Draft time's coming, draft time, 6 months away. But draft time's coming. Shout out to the guys that are on the clock, Caleb and Julian. They've been really helpful in that process for me, getting me into the draft earlier this year. I really put a focus on it. Big board's coming very, very soon. And just a humble thank you. The article, like I said, I put out a couple of days ago now. I think it's been over a week. It was, like I said, took a lot of time. It took 2.5 months to put that together. And I really appreciate the support that's already been showed on it. So if you haven't, this is officially the first time, like I said, a podcast listener is going to hear about it. But yeah, it's going to be linked in the description below, as well as it'll be on the twopointerspodcast.com. So rambling over, I again appreciate all the support. I'm going to continue to beat that into the ground. 100 episodes. Cheers to 100 more, right? I'm looking forward to it. The NBA season's in full swing. College basketball, you're going to hear a lot more of in the next couple of weeks. Got some really cool guests being worked on about college basketball, so I'm looking forward to having those guys on. Again, check out last week's episode. You'll see at the very end whenever you see the YouTube roll. You'll see the last episode on the screen there. Please check it out. Thank you. I appreciate all the support once again. Again, don't forget, let me know your favorite thing you've watched in the NBA so far. This has been the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett. We'll see you later.